Welcome to the DX Today Expert Report. Today we're diving into the snowy peaks of the Swiss Alps to unpack the outcomes of the World Economic Forum Annual Meeting 2026. It's been a pivotal week in Davos, and the headline is clear. The hype cycle is officially over, and the Great Adaptation has begun.
It really has. If you look back at the last few years, the tone has shifted dramatically. This year, under the theme A Spirit of Dialogue, the conversation was grounded, serious, and focused entirely on the operational reality of AI.
That phrase, the Great Adaptation, really stuck out to me in the report. It implies we are past the point of deciding if we are going to use these technologies. Now, it's about how we integrate them without breaking the systems we rely on, whether that's social stability or the power grid.
Exactly. The atmosphere this year was defined by a world that is highly contested. We have a record number of global conflicts and deep geopolitical fragmentation. So while AI was still the star of the show, it wasn't discussed in a vacuum.
It was discussed as a structural force that has to work within these planetary and political boundaries.
Let's talk about that trajectory for a moment. To understand 2026, you have to look at the timeline. 2023 was the debut of ChatGPT, pure curiosity. 2024 was the peak hype year. Then last year, 2025, felt like purgatory for a lot of CIOs. Everyone was stuck in proof of concept hell, struggling with data readiness.
And that brings us to now. 2026 is the reality check. The systems are operational. The focus has shifted to the 3 E's: efficiency, energy, and ethics.
Business leaders weren't getting applause for announcing a new chatbot anymore. They were getting scrutinized on their energy consumption and their safety protocols.
Speaking of the economic impact, the IMF released some significant numbers during the meeting. 8% boost to annual global growth due to AI productivity? That is massive. But there was a catch, wasn't there?
There's always a catch. The IMF highlighted a serious divergence. Advanced economies are integrating this tech rapidly, but emerging markets risk falling behind because they lack the digital infrastructure.
8% growth isn't distributed equally. It requires massive investment in human capital, safety nets, education, to make sure this growth doesn't just widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
That leads us directly into the market analysis coming out of Davos. The investment thesis seems to have changed. It's no longer just about buying GPUs. Investors are realizing that AI doesn't run on magic, it runs on electricity. The conversation shifted towards energy sovereignty. Data centers are now being viewed as essential national infrastructure, almost like highways or water supplies.
So, capital allocation is prioritizing companies that have a sustainable growth strategy, not just raw speed. But let's get into the technology itself.
This is the most critical technical shift. For the last 3 years, we've been using chatbots. You type a prompt, you get text back. That's passive.
Explain that for our listeners who might not be in the technical weeds. How is an agent different from the models we've been using?
A chatbot talks. An agent does.
These new agentic models can plan, reason, and execute multi-step workflows across different applications. They don't just summarize an email. They can read the email, check your inventory system, update a spreadsheet, and reply to the vendor, all autonomously. The value proposition has shifted from using a single model to orchestrating a team of specialized models to solve business problems. That sounds like a massive leap in efficiency, but it also sounds like a massive strain on energy resources.
It is. The industry is hitting a ceiling.
To scale these agents, we need models that are smarter, but also smaller. Inference efficiency, how much power it takes to run the model once it's built, is becoming the most important metric in tech. It wasn't just optimism. There was real anxiety about the workforce. The sentiment has shifted from excitement to anxiety. We aren't talking about augmentation in the abstract anymore. We are seeing structural integration. One of the 5 pillars of the meeting was investing in people. Leaders were being told quite bluntly that they need to be transparent.
You can't implement agentic workflows that replace tasks and not be honest with your employees about what that means for their jobs.
The report mentions a reskilling revolution, but it feels more urgent now. It's about preventing structural unemployment. And alongside that, there was a heavy focus on safety and accountability.
The Wild West days are closing out. There were loud calls for accountability for AI developers. If a model hallucinates or causes real-world harm, who is responsible? The comparison used in the hallways was social media.
We waited too long to regulate social platforms. The experts at Davos are demanding we don't make the same mistake with consumer AI. And, of course, the geopolitical angle.
It's a regulatory divergence. Some nations are clamping down with strict frameworks, while others are deregulating to achieve energy dominance and AI superiority. It's creating a very complex landscape for global companies.
Let's move to the concrete evidence. The WEF released a report titled Proof Over Promise. I love that title.
It highlighted organizations that have moved to the minds stage: meaningful, intelligent, novel, deployable solutions. The first case study was the Saudi Ministry of Health. This was a standout example of AI doing actual good. They deployed AI-enabled thermal imaging to detect diabetic foot conditions early. The stats are incredible. They saw a 90% reduction in clinician time and an 80% cut in treatment costs.
And a 10 times increase in sustaining capacity. That's not just efficiency, that's expanding access to care in a region where diabetes is a major health issue.
Exactly. Then you have Fujitsu on the supply chain side. This is the efficiency era in action. They used AI for inventory management and saved $15 million in carrying costs and another $20 million by reducing excess stock.
But there was a workforce component to that Fujitsu case, wasn't there?
There was. They saw a 50% reduction in operational headcount for those specific inventory tasks. That's the double-edged sword. Great for the bottom line, validates the technology, but it brings us right back to that need for safety nets and reskilling.
The third case study, Tech Mahindra's Project Indus, seemed to address the inclusion gap we talked about earlier.
Right. They built a multilingual large language model specifically for the Global South. 8 million queries a month with 92% accuracy. This is crucial because the AI economy cannot be English only. 8% global growth to be equitable, we need tools that work for everyone, not just Silicon Valley.
So, looking ahead, based on the dialogue in the Alps, what does the roadmap look like for 2027 and beyond?
We are going to stop talking about using tools and start talking about managing agents.
And for the leaders listening, the strategic recommendations are pretty clear.
First, orchestrate responsibly. You have to keep humans in the loop. Second, secure your energy. If you aren't investing in sustainable power or partnering with those who are, your supply chain is vulnerable. And third, address the trust deficit. Your employees are anxious. If you don't have a transparent roadmap for how this tech changes their lives, you will lose the institutional trust you need to succeed.
It really comes down to that concluding thought from the report. Innovation is the driver, but sustainability and ethics are the guardrails.
That's the takeaway. The Great Adaptation isn't just about the code we write, it's about the society we build around it.
A fascinating look at where we are headed. That wraps up our deep dive into the 2026 World Economic Forum report. Thanks for listening to the DX Today Expert Report. We'll catch you next time.